Hey, and welcome to another episode of Fast Forward, a podcast from QSR Magazine where we talk to the founders, innovators, and entrepreneurs behind some of the world's most exciting fast casual restaurant concepts. My name is Sam Oches. I'm the editor of QSR and the editorial director of Food News Media. On today's episode, I'm sharing my conversation with CEO of SAJJ Mediterranean, Zaid Ayoub. Now, Mediterranean fast casual, for my money, is one of the most exciting things going on in the restaurant industry today. There's this exciting energy going on around Mediterranean food where a lot of folks see this as another opportunity beyond Mexican food, beyond, some of these global cuisines that are starting to take off with these bold flavors. Mediterranean really seems positioned in a really perfect way to capture that audience that is interested in Chipotle, that loves, Mexican food and really loves customization, which of course fast casual is known for. In the Mediterranean space, this is food that's fresh and healthy. You have things like hummus and falafel and shawarma, things that are at once global but also familiar to American audiences. And several brands are figuring this out and jumping into the Mediterranean fast casual space. SAJJ is definitely one of them. Based out in the Bay Area, SAJJ started back in 2012, had 5 partners who co-founded it, including Zaid Ayoub. But what was so funny about Zaid, or what's so interesting about his position with this company, is he didn't have a restaurant background. He came into this partnership with an engineering background, and he worked with engineering and technology. And it's really interesting from our conversation you'll hear. He brings a lot of that experience and a lot of that knowledge into the SAJJ business in ways that a restaurant executive really never could do. So our conversation goes from talking about how they launched this business in 2012 as a food truck and how that really has kind of started their success with the off-premises business, and kind of bounce around to how they've really optimized the menu and the experience and the brand to best serve today's customers, which of course is increasingly technology-oriented. So I was out in San Mateo, California, and sat down in one of the restaurants with Zaid to hear a little bit more about the SAJJ story and how his unique experience is being utilized for this restaurant, which is now about 10 locations and has plans to open 20 by the end of 2020. So I started by asking Zaid about this process of getting into the restaurant industry and how he went from being an engineer to being the CEO of one of the most exciting Mediterranean fast casual concepts out there today.
So my background is engineering. Went to engineering school in California. Did a lot of years in the semiconductor industry. We used to design and manufacture test equipment to test chips.
Okay.
The only commonality between that business and what I do today is I used to run what's called a burn-in division, which is you would age chips or devices under temperature.
Okay.
You literally put them in ovens. And what you do is try to test for infant mortality. So the only common thing and the reason you do that is because you want to make sure that the chips that we sell to end users don't fail.
Sure.
In the beginning of their life.
Uh-huh.
And the theory is that if they don't fail in the first week or so, they're not going to fail for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
So the only commonality between food and what I used to do is that I know how to run ovens. Other than that...
Gotcha. Other than that, no food experience.
Yeah. So, and while I was going to college, there was this a really good owner-operator falafel shop outside college.
Uh-huh.
And I would go there a lot for lunch. The line was out the door every day, but the food was good, but the operation was not dialed in. It was not consistent.
Okay.
And I figured if somebody does this well, there's a market for Middle Eastern or Mediterranean food. Fast forward about 10-15 years, my wife did her MBA thesis about establishing a fast food Middle Eastern Mediterranean concept. So she ended up interviewing a lot of the players at the time. Mm-hmm. Didn't do anything with it, stayed in the high-tech space. My wife ended up went into the art space and the design space. After I exited my second company in the tech business, I took a hiatus. I was kind of looking for what to do. Mm-hmm. A good friend of mine who is the culinary partner approached me and said, how about we set up that concept we had in mind? And I told him I'd love to. I don't know anything about food. I'm more than happy to help you with funding, with concept design with IT, but I can't run this stuff.
Yeah.
So we went off, raised a bunch of money. Actually, and we collected a group of 5 guys that came together to start this.
Okay.
3 out of the 5 guys actually had food experience, so I was comfortable that this thing is gonna go.
That helps, yeah.
Opened up the first location end of 2012. The first location was is still in Menlo Park with a food truck. And first day, about 45 minutes into the first day of the launch, obviously we're all there, we're all happy, and we had a lot of customers come in, and there's this one gentleman who I was greeting people at the door, and he goes, "So how long you guys been open?" And I told him 45 minutes. He goes, I don't mean today. How long you been in business? I said 45 minutes. Then he goes, so how many locations do you have? And I said only one.
Yeah.
And his fourth question was, can I invest?
Oh, wow.
And that's when kind of our first aha moment. It's like, wait a minute, this thing is really cool. We should be able to really do this and scale it fast.
Yeah.
So we went on a fast track, raised money, and funded the company to have 5 locations. By that, we already had 1 food truck. We were working on the second one. We were working on a commissary.
Okay.
So we went really accelerated growth. By 2014, we had 3 units and 2 food trucks and a commissary.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it was one of those things where everybody was running the business and nobody's running the business.
Yeah.
We picked some wrong real estate. And we were not really dialed in. We didn't have the procedures under control. We didn't have the operations under control. We had a great product. Our food was always good. We took pride in what we do. But operationally, we were not really dialed in.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, I had to make a decision whether we just let it go and, punt, basically, or should we just really focus on this thing. And I figured, because a lot of people invested in me and invested in the concept, I figured I'm going to give it a shot. So
yeah.
By the middle of 2015, I came in full time and started the turnaround, if you will, even
Sure.
though we're not that big. So what we did is we shut down 2 units.
Okay.
And opened up another 2 units that were under construction in better real estate, better areas that fit our market better. And I started looking into off-premise sales. I started looking into how do we satisfy and get our product accessible to a wider audience, bigger market.
Mm-hmm.
So we caught onto a lot of we did a lot of effort in online at the time. Actually, we always did. Mm-hmm. We're using cloud-based systems from day one, but we focused a lot on digital marketing and online presence. We focused a lot on catering. A significant amount of our effort went into catering and optimizing the menus and making sure that it's a product that holds well and gets to the customer the way they want it, with all the proper nutrition facts and information. And opened up the other 2 units, and since then it's been actually a really nice ride. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of tough work, but here we are with 9 units. We have another unit opening in downtown San Jose in about hopefully 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Another unit is going to open in San Ramon in the middle of summer.
Okay.
The other units we have are in Menlo Park, San Jose, Mountain View. We have 2 units in Orange County, one in Irvine and one in Rancho Santa Margarita. So we're opening the Southern California market. And our vision or our plan is to be 20 units by the year 2020.
Okay.
In California.
Mm-hmm.
We are in preliminary talks to go outside California. And I think that we have a concept that's very well received. We did a lot of work in terms of training and making sure that our brand ambassadors, our employees are dialed in. They understand what needs to be happening. We did a lot of work in the supply chain and the back end. So I think we're in a good position now to grow.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's go back to the concept development piece of this, because if you guys first opened in 2012, that was really the height of fast casual, right? I mean, this was when Chipotle was firing on all cylinders. A lot of brands were jumping into the space. What was behind the decision to make it Mediterranean focused, and specifically, a lot of the menu is very Middle Eastern focused? What was behind that decision?
Well, it's the Mediterranean piece is from my experience when I was in college and going to that one place where it was very well accepted.
Okay.
Fast casual at the time, as you're saying, Sam, became very popular.
Mm-hmm.
So the combination of the two made sense. The other thing is people were starting to realize that people want to customize their dishes. They want a culinary experience, not just fast food. They want to know what they're having. They wanted transparency, and they wanted value, and they want it now.
Yeah.
So putting all of those together is really where the inspiration came from. And we felt that we should be able to do this consistently and scale it.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have the scaling piece when we started.
Okay.
The other piece that we didn't have is understanding the importance of off-premise.
Mm-hmm.
Restaurants used to be in the old days, especially even full-service restaurants today. You go in, you have a great experience with the maitre d', and then you sit down and you have a waiter, and then you order the food, and somebody talks to you about the food and the wine, and then that's all there, and it's nice, but that's really not the target that we're going after. That's not how most people eat today.
Right.
And we figured if we make the food very approachable, with high quality, and offer the culinary experience put together, we'll be able to succeed. Obviously, what we didn't have in the very beginning is the discipline and the procedures and the back end of the business that we worked very hard to get to.
Yeah. I imagine your experience in technology must have come in great. I mean, that was really handy when you get into developing the off-premises platforms like catering and digital ordering and stuff like that.
Very true, very true. And honestly, the fact that I don't come, or my background is not in the food industry, in this case, I think is an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I came in with a white piece of paper. I mean, it was, to me, all there is no certain way of doing something or not doing something.
Okay.
Very open to whatever's out there, and we evaluate it and look at it as a team and see whether it makes sense or not. And hey, we tried a lot of things that didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that we're technology enabled, let me say.
Mm-hmm.
People driven, obviously, but technology is in the back end. It allowed us to do things early on that most small restaurant owners or brands could not do.
Yeah.
Things like monitoring quality digitally, things like monitoring cost in a real-time basis.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's becoming more available and prominent in the whole industry, but at the time we were the early adopters for a lot of this stuff, and a lot of it didn't work. But we were able to at least get data and analyze what we're doing well, what we're not doing well. That, along with the network effect, the fact that we had food trucks, we had brick-and-mortar locations, heavy emphasis on catering, and we partnered with all of the online partners from day one. We never argued about the commission structure or the cost. To me, that's really, it's important, obviously, and you have to look at it, but it's more about customer acquisition and about access to the final user, to our guests. And so putting all of those things together early on really created a nice network effect that allowed the brand to become bigger than what it really is at the time.
Sure.
And customers would see us, they see the food truck, they'll have the food delivered to their office, they'll have the food delivered to their homes through online ordering at night, and they tell their friends, and obviously we have loyalty programs, so you tell your friend, you get some discount, your friend gets a discount, so all of that put together really allowed us to get to where we are.
Yeah.
Today, I'm happy to say that we're about 50% of our sales are off-premise.
Wow.
Which is I think it's the network effect. It's the fact that we want to get to the customer wherever the customer is.
Yeah.
Luckily, our food holds well, so we could you could wait half an hour, 45 minutes before you get to the food and still okay. And that built the network effect with the off-premise sales put together is really giving us I think an advantage.
Sure.
And as we scale, that's kind of the model that we look for.
You were telling me before about how you don't run your catering out of a commissary. You run it out of your restaurants because the customer service component is so important to you. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on how you can maintain strong off-premises growth while also having the customer service component.
A very good question, by the way, and we evaluate this as we go. We used to be commissary-centric when we started, and once we hit, I think it was 4 units, we realized that unless you build a huge commissary and you become in the food manufacturing business, you're not going to be able to satisfy the demand, whether it's because of our own stores or because of delivery to to customers, whether it is catering or online. And we figured that we can do that, but that's not what we really are good at. That's not what we do. We're really about network effect, about building a brand. It's about really having touch points with the client, less so about the manufacturing of the food and where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So we diverted the model to a distributed model, where we basically things are done at the store level. A lot of our proprietary items are done at the commissary.
Okay.
But the actual experience, the customer experience, happens at the store level. What this allows us to do is a lot of good things. Food is fresher when it comes out of what is made. We could actually only fire the equipment to cook anything at the time, like the shortest amount of time until it gets to be delivered.
Okay.
The other things that we can do is we can deliver big, large caterings in 4 hours or less.
Wow.
Something that when we first started, we had to have something like a 48-hour lead time.
Right.
Actually started at 72 hours. And I'd argue with the ops people, why can't we make this, 24 hours?
Yeah.
Well, we got it down to 48, then we got it down to 24, then we got it down to 12. And I'm like, why is it 12? So we got it down to 8, and now it's at 4 hours.
Wow.
So we could actually execute a catering and deliver it. I'm talking about, for 100, 200, 300 people.
Yeah.
In 4 hours or less. And what that allowed us to do is to enable our customers to order catering, large orders online without talking to anybody, and have the food show up in 4 hours.
Incredible.
So that is one of the advantages of having locations all over the Bay Area. So if the order is in San Jose, it's going to be executed out of San Jose.
Right.
If the order is in San Francisco, it's going to get executed out of San Francisco. Now, the management of this whole thing is centralized.
Okay.
So it all comes into one funnel, and we decide where it's going to go out of and execute it that way. So you get a better product. And the other thing that we do is we give the revenue to that location.
Oh, okay.
So the managers or the general managers, which are really our most important, all our employees are very important, but they're the key in making sure everything goes the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Get credit for it.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, we're all corporate owned. We don't have any franchises or any of that. So we're kind of also lucky in that sense that we could move things around the way we want.
For sure. I imagine that data must help you a ton with that. What you were talking about with the catering, getting it down from 72 hours down to 4 hours. It must be all data driven, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. On many levels, by the way, Sam. So first off, we do heat maps.
Oh, okay.
To where caterings end up. And that is our guide to where we open more locations. Obviously, we look at the office density, we look at daytime density, nighttime density, we look at all kinds of demographic data.
Sure.
And but the catering piece is very important to us because that's a big part of our business.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece of it is absolutely because we're data driven. We look at usage of any one ingredient or any product and make sure that we're properly stocked at any of the stores. The nice thing about our concept is it's not made to order. It's made to stock, if you will.
Okay.
And then the guest goes through the line and assembles it the way they want. Catering is kind of the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So we could actually build inventory at the stores, distributed stores, and be okay with it. Because if we don't use it today, we're going to use it the next day.
Right.
So that model allows us to be a lot more flexible and provide a better product for our customer, a fresher product.
Yeah. So you're called SAJJ Mediterranean. Mediterranean is hot right now, right? I mean, Americans are falling in love with Mediterranean. But Mediterranean is such a catch-all term for so many different cultures. And I imagine there are some, misperceptions among American consumers about what Mediterranean is. Do you bump up against that, or how do you lean into that to some degree to define for the American consumer base what Mediterranean is?
Sure. Well, obviously Mediterranean is around the Mediterranean, and talking about North Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. We're more Middle Eastern than Mediterranean per se, because in Mediterranean food you have a lot of seafood. I'll have a lot of shellfish, which we don't offer. Not because we don't want to, just because that's not what we're focusing on.
Yeah.
So the origin of the Middle Eastern food that actually proliferated into Europe, like the doner kebabs, like the gyros, all of that, along with the falafel and shawarma, all originated from the Ottoman Empire.
Right.
They occupied that part of the world for hundreds of years, and that's really what they brought the food and that type of cuisine. And over the years, that became customized based on what's available in every country or every town.
Right.
So there's falafel wherever you go in the Middle East, and it's slightly different. Shawarma is available everywhere. In Europe, they took it and made doner kebab out of it. Greece, they have the tzatziki, which they took the yogurt and added the cucumber to it. So it's been customized or changed, if you will, to the locale that you're in. But the origin of the food is all the same. Now, and a lot of it goes back to way earlier than the Ottoman Empire, like the falafel and all of those things. You know, there's debates where it actually originated from. But you know, if you go back 3,000-4,000 years, that was the only place that had civilization in the world. So a lot of stuff came out of that.
Right, yeah.
You know, and but in our case, it's really mostly Middle Eastern that originated from Turkey, and then in Europe, it's been kind of modified to the local palate. You go to, for example, and one of my co-founders actually, one of his inspirations about SAJJ was in the Latin Quarter in Paris.
Oh, sure.
You go down to the Latin Quarter, and you're gonna get a lot of falafel and shawarma sandwiches. And in Europe, they put French fries with it. In the Middle East, they don't. So we have French fries on our menu because we know in certain parts of the world that is the way they're used to having that product. So we took the product from the region. Our food, I think, is very authentic. Our chef comes from the region, professionally trained, worked for big hotel brands, very corporate driven, but also very authentic in terms of the food itself and the recipes. And by the way, we share our recipes online with everybody.
Interesting.
We're very transparent about it just because we know people care about what they're eating.
Right.
But we take the traditional flavors and we provide them in a very pure way, where we allow the guests to customize it the way they want.
Sure.
So we added things like avocado, which is, you know, now is popular there, but wasn't a while back. We added French fries. So the falafel is the falafel, the shawarma is the shawarma, but then we have other items that caters to the local palate.
Okay.
So I would say the food is very authentic. The vehicle might not be.
Yeah.
But that's how our clients like it, and we let the customers do it the way they like it.
Yeah. Well, we were talking earlier about that idea of authenticity and having authentic flavors. But when you're serving that to the American customer, I mean, are there ways you have to sort of America-ify it to some degree? Or do you feel like we're at a point now in the U.S. where the customer is educated, they will trust you to put out whatever bold, you know, adventurous, authentic flavors that you have from that culture?
You know, very good question. Again, we're lucky to be in this segment at this time because the Mediterranean diet is becoming very, very popular, and everybody knows it. It's healthy. You know, it's been written up almost every day in any periodical about how good it is for you.
Yeah.
And we try to feature the benefits of every ingredient that we have in different times, different communication methods. And the fact that we allow the guests to customize it the way they want, then, you know, it's becomes easier on us. You know, if you want to go vegan, you can. If you want to go high protein, you can. If you want to go paleo or keto, all of that's available. The cool thing about it is that the ingredients are pure and they're there.
Yeah.
So, which makes our life really easy compared to other culinary restaurants. So that in a way is an advantage for us as well. The other aspect of it is the Middle Eastern or Mediterranean, accessibility is a lot more today. I read somewhere that something like a quarter of the menus in the United States in all restaurants added a Mediterranean item on their menu last year.
I believe that. Yeah.
I mean, hummus is pretty much in every menu I see.
Right. Yeah.
So, which is really, really cool because there's more people that see this and know it, and the more they do, the better, you know, we are.
It's doing the marketing for you.
Exactly.
So the Mediterranean category is getting pretty busy right now. There are a lot of competitors, and fast casual in general has seen some headwinds. Real estate is kind of tough. Labor, of course, across the whole industry is pretty tough. How is SAJJ navigating some of those choppy waters? Are you guys able to sort of rise above some of that competition and some of that, you know, some of those headwinds, or are you facing some of those things too?
No, absolutely. It's becoming, you know, the high tide raises all ships. So I think we're this year is very interesting, where I think we're starting to see some consolidation in the business, in this sector of the business at least. And we're seeing that there's a lot of newcomers coming on as well. So it really, at the end of the day, to me, it's about being able to offer really, really good products, offer a genuine experience, and have customers be able to customize the food the way they want. So we're giving the nostalgia, if you will. We're giving we're transporting our guests to the Middle Eastern or Mediterranean flavors, but at the same time offering to them in a way and vehicle that they like, or the way they're comfortable with. I think what's going to happen is, obviously the market is going to keep growing. There's a few incredible nationwide brands out there that we respect a lot, and we think they're doing a fantastic job. But the United States is very big, and let alone international. There's a long way to go, and the more people succeed, the better it's going to be for everybody.
Right.
In this category and in general.
Sure.
But obviously, people, if somebody's coming new, they're not doing the right thing, they're not transparent, they're not understanding the market well, then there'll probably be more challenges for them to
Sure, yeah. So the restaurant we are sitting in right now, you called it SAJJ 2.0. You have these nice wood finishes on the walls, you have these really nice seating, very cozy atmosphere. You make it so that guests feel like they can kind of sit and stay a while. Obviously, you're evolving the brand. I mean, it's a 7-year-old brand, but you've got to continue to change it toward customer preferences. What does evolution in general look like, especially for a concept that's rooted in authenticity?
Good question. And I it's not really a step function. It's an ongoing learning and changing as we go. What we realized is transparency is the most important thing. So whatever we do, we design actually our being around making sure our customers understand what we're doing, our staff, our employees understand what we're doing, and offering a unique experience. And in doing so, we want to take out the ambiguity or the not knowing what you're eating, and want to give you all of that up front, but yet give you, what we want to do now is give you a more relaxed ambiance, a more relaxed atmosphere for people to come in and just hang out. The fact that 50% of what we do is off-premise, and by the way, in certain locations, the to-go business where people actually stay in line and order and go, will make our off-premise in those locations probably 80%. Wow. So we don't really have space constraints. Right, yeah. I mean, whatever dining room we have, we want people to hang out and come and have your meeting here. Right. And we see a trend in at least in the Bay Area, is that people come in groups. Oh, sure. Which is really cool. They go down the street and, there's 4 or 5 of them that come together, and you want them to come in and have their meeting. The nice thing about this format, on most fast casual concepts, is if you have a line and you stay in line, let's say it takes you 10 minutes, 12 minutes to get your food, but at the end of the 10 or 12 minutes, you already paid and you have the food in your hands. Right. So there's no double wait. You don't stay in line to order and then wait for the food to come in. So now you have the rest of the hour, if you're going to spend an hour, to lounge. Well, we want you to lounge in a nice area, a nice environment. We don't want you to feel that you need to leave. Yeah. So what we're doing is we're using less bright lights. We're using cloth banquettes, more accessible, more approachable flow within the store. They're slightly larger stores than what we had before, and I think it'll play very well with the digital image that we have too. So we're putting all of that together, in store and online, our website, so it all kind of flows together. So if you go through our website, and I think our guys did a great job designing it. When you walk into the store, we want that experience to follow through. Sure. Our mission statement is very clear: happier and healthier people. When you walk into the stores, you want you to see that vision, which means you've seen it before, and transcend from the digital space to the physical space. Sure. So what you guys have done is so much oriented around experience. I think it's so interesting how you started with a food truck, which was one experience. Then you also had the brick and mortar simultaneously, which is another experience.
and then you have your catering, off-premises, and all that. How do you see the experience going in the future? I mean, do you feel like off-premises is just going to swallow the whole like industry, and that's going to be the majority of your sales, or do you see this kind of continuing to evolve in different ways?
Great question. And being in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley, I think we're probably on the leading end of that in terms of the off-premise, in terms of the online and the partners. So yeah, I mean, even though the experiences are different in what we do, the physical experience is different, but the actual guest experience is the same. The food is the same. The imaging, what you see, how you interact with our staff members. I call them actually brand ambassadors, because we're an open concept, and every employee we have actually engages with the customer. And once you think of them you think of our employees as brand ambassadors, the whole training program changes, the whole educational program changes. They need to understand the food very well. They need to have very good communication skills. They need to, the attire has to be proper. They need to feel good about what they're doing. So you tie the healthier and happier mission into everything you do, starting with the employees. So the experience, even though the physical experience is different, meaning you're on a truck or you're getting the catering to your office, but the actual experience with SAJJ is the same.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing. In terms of how much of it is going to end up to be off-premise versus in the stores, it's a hard question. I think we're good. I'm happy with being 50% off-premise. We're not a catering company.
Right.
We can be. It's probably easier, by the way.
That's right.
But that's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we're not only brick and mortar where it's a dining experience. So I think we're in a sweet spot because we leverage one of the other and we learn from the experiences as we grow. I don't know that we could replicate this in every market, in every location. We're experimenting in Orange County right now, and we have 2 locations, and we'll see in a few months we'll have some really good data as to how much that off-premise versus in-store will be. But I think we got to play to your strengths. In our case, the food travels well. We're digitally enabled. So those are things that we can do that will allow us to get a jump start and grow. So whenever we go to a new market, it's an integral part of our business model.
Sure.
Going forward. The other aspect of it is, there's all this talk about ghost kitchens.
Right, yeah.
Which I think is brilliant.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. I mean, I could justify having one of them in every market we're in. And we probably will.
Yeah.
But I also believe that you have to have a presence, a physical presence.
Yeah.
People want to see your banner. They want to see your name. They want to come and experience the area, the store, and the people. So I think while it could be good for certain brands, but to succeed, you have to have the combination of the two.
Right.
Which I think will be the ideal setup going forward.
So let's talk about growth a little bit. You're not a franchise concept, and that can make growth a little bit slower. You're all in California at the moment, but where do you envision growth going? Do you see franchising in your future, or do you want to keep it corporate, and how do you hope to do that growth?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
So we do our planning in 18-month cycles. Just historically, that's how I always done it. And we look at franchising 3 times in that 18-month period. In other words, every 6 months we look at the franchising, and we push it out another 6 months.
Kick that can down the road.
It's a different business.
Yeah.
It's totally a different business. We've been studying it, and we're studying it more and more. Will we franchise in the future? Possible. I don't really know. Meanwhile, we believe that the way we're growing, even though it's slower than franchising, we're controlling the brand better. We're really enhancing and learning about our customer and guest experience, which is, to me, the most important thing. And I think we have a long way to go before we could do a lot on our own before we franchise. We are not outside California yet, even though we have a lot of discussions to go outside California. California is very big.
Yeah.
And with the way we're scaling and the way we're doing things, I'd rather have a controllable, sustainable growth than to really go for the big growth and lose control.
Yeah.
And operationally and brand-wise, I think we're ready to franchise. But I don't know that it's the right time for us yet. And like I said, California is very weak. So we're focusing on California for now. We'll exit California probably. We'll start planning by 2020.
Yeah.
I see that we could have, I mean, any one of these good brands like in this segment can have hundreds of locations in the United States, let alone beyond.
Right.
And do we want to be the biggest one of them? Not necessarily. Do you want to get there the fastest? Not necessarily. I mean, what I learned from our early days, we were very ambitious, opening 3 locations and a food truck and a commissary at the same time without having the right infrastructure. Granted, 3 units isn't different than 300.
Sure.
I understand, but I don't want to go into those areas again. The other thing is our growth really has not been a straight line. I mean, we didn't pivot. We had to find our way.
Mm-hmm.
And now we'll be 11 locations in a couple of months. We'll be 15 by the end of the year, 20 by 2020. Even though that's not a huge count in the food business, it wasn't. Every phase we changed things, and we changed things a lot. Supply chain was changed completely when we went from 3 units to where we are today. It will probably have to do more changes as we go on past the 15 to 20 units.
Mm-hmm.
So things keep moving, and our job is to really realize these things and learn and roll with the punches, as they say.
Sure.
But really know where true north for us. True north. You need to know where you're going, where you want to be.
So it's a good segue into my last question for you, which is, you've learned so much over the last 7 years in this business. You had sort of a bumpy start. You learned a lot through that. Thinking about other young food entrepreneurs who want to get into this business, what would your advice be to somebody who's just starting out?
My first advice would be do not do it. It's a tough business. It's a grind. It's 24/7. When I was in tech, it's, comes the weekend, you're off.
Right.
I'm not really, but there's no emergencies or, but I'll tell you, I mean, the main takeaways would be is, if you were to do it, focus on, first and foremost, the right people. Build the right culture. We hire for personality, we train for skill. It's the people are the most important thing in any business, but I would say in the food business to be a very, very key thing. The other thing I would say is you got to be very transparent. You got to be very honest with yourself. What are you trying to do? What are you serving? Who's your market? Who's your customer? Listen, barriers to entry for the restaurant business is very low. Yeah. And that's why the failure rate is very high. So unless you really need to be really honest with yourself as to what is it that you're trying to accomplish. Is it a lifestyle? Is this something you want to hang out and do 1 unit, 2 units? Or do you really want to make a true business out of it and grow it?
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say is you got to figure out the ingredients. You got to make sure that you have the right supply chain and you're able to source well. For us, for example, all our produce is locally sourced. All our breads are locally sourced. Everything else is not.
Yeah.
And that's our brand promise. This is what we do. So you need to be really also understand the processing and what needs to happen. The biggest thing would be really is transparency with your staff, with your people, and this is a grind. It's a full-time job. There's no, it's not a hobby.
Right.
Even though it's very sexy and people like to own food concepts. It's for me part-time means you're on the way in or on your way out. You gotta just do it full-time.
Yeah. Awesome. Zaid, this is wonderful. Thank you so much for this and for sitting down. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Sam. It's lovely chatting with you, and I hope you enjoyed the food.
Oh, absolutely. I loved it. There you have it. That's my conversation with SAJJ Mediterranean CEO Zaid Ayoub. As always, go to qsrmagazine.com for all the news and insights you need on the QSR and fast casual restaurant industries. Go to qsrmagazine.com/podcast for the full Fast Forward archive. And of course, go subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to it. Send us feedback, rate the podcast. We love to hear more. You can email me, sam@qsrmagazine.com. And with all that said, we'll talk to you again next time.